On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Tuesday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. Joe DiBiase at Sneaky Joe Sports from Locked On Sabres. Mike Distefano from Locked On Leafs at Mickey_Canuck. Catching you on YouTube. If you happen to be watching us, or if you're not watching us, maybe you're on the Odyssey app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Be sure to check out our video portion of the podcast. And for those watching, we hope you enjoy our beautiful faces. Can we still use the face for radio joke, Mike? I don't know if we can use that anymore because we're on video.
For myself, I can still use it. I mean, this is clearly I haven't shaved in a couple of days. This is clearly a face for radio. Let's just is what it is.
By the way, I have started, especially in summer, I take a lot off my beard so that I don't have to shave for a couple of days because then nobody notices that you haven't shaved for a couple of days. So that's been definitely lazy though, for sure. So today we've got a fun show for you. We're continuing on with our top 50 players in the NHL list. We are at 40 through 31. If you missed 50 through 41 or you missed the snubs that just came outside of the top 50, be sure to check out Friday's edition with me and Rachel Donner, or if you want the snubs, last week's edition with me and Mike Distefano. So yeah, we're having some fun. We're going to go 40 through 31 on today's show. Little news item to jump off with, something that we don't often get to talk about. We had an offer sheet this weekend, and if you want a detailed analysis on it, be sure to check out yesterday's edition of Locked On NHL. But quick thoughts, Mike, the Hurricanes trolling the Canadiens, the deal itself, the decision to be had by Montreal. What did you make of Carolina offer sheeting Jesperi Kotkaniemi?
It's the ultimate troll job. Everything about it. I mean, $6.1 million is just far too much, but I think it's just 6.10035. They got the $20 signing bonus, and there's just it's a whole nother level when it comes to the pettiness and the troll level on this signing. That being said, if I'm Montreal, I'm not signing this. I'm declining this, and I'll take the picks because Kotkaniemi's not worth $6.1 million. No chance in hell. Not this year. Probably not next year, which is the same number that they're gonna have to qualify him at if they want to keep his services. I think it's a lose-lose for Montreal realistically, but I think it would be so difficult for them to lock him in to this $6.1 million figure. Because this is a guy who had 20 points this year.
Yeah.
He barely put up any type of production. He was sat for a couple of games in the Stanley Cup final. Kotkaniemi seems to be kind of, fallen out of favor, maybe is a term that can be used for it, maybe not, but 6.1 is just ridiculous. So I if I'm Montreal, I don't sign that. I take the picks, and then I see what those picks can maybe get me in terms of a trade to bring in another young centerman.
What do you make of it from Carolina's end? I mean, I'll give him credit for at least this. When Sebastian Aho signed his offer sheet with the Montreal Canadiens, I thought it was pretty easy for Carolina. I thought the contract was not that bad. I know they front-loaded the contract to make it a little tough financially, but if they could come up with the money, I thought the cap cost and the on-ice talent that you were getting, it was a pretty easy decision. This is a hard decision, I think. You don't want to lose the guy, but like you said, he's not worth $6.1 million, and you are getting a first-round pick in compensation. It's probably going to end up being a low first-round pick given how good Carolina has been the past couple of seasons. But I give Carolina credit for making it difficult. I give them credit for just trolling in general, too. Maybe they went a little too far. I thought maybe I didn't need the GM saying word for word what Aho or what Marc Bergevin said about Aho a couple years ago.
And changing their Twitter to French. And
that one I like.
French. And it's just, there was so much that went into this troll job that you got to somewhat respect it. But at the same time, I'm bringing in Kotkaniemi for $6 million just doesn't actually seem like a good business decision to me. They kind of did this out of emotion as opposed to smarts, where at least Bergevin bringing in Sebastian Aho at what is it, $8.4 million, I think? That made sense. That's a number that makes sense. That's a business decision. This seems like strictly emotional, and it's just, I don't know. I think it's a little bit of a risky call for them, especially if Montreal decides to decline it. Now they can lose out on, a first and a third round pick if Kotkaniemi doesn't take that next step this year. Can they really retain him next season? The good thing is, if you look at their cap structure, they've got a lot of their stars locked in long term. So there's not many of their guys up and comers that still need contracts. I think maybe Nakash probably is the lone guy who still needs a deal. But outside of that, Aho signed long term, Svechnikov signed long term. So they've got some guys in there that they're comfortable with. So I guess they realized, or they looked at that number and said, yeah, if we need to pay 6.1 for Kotkaniemi next couple of years, we can fit it in.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see what the Montreal Canadiens end up doing. So stay tuned to Locked On NHL for the latest on that. Give us a little bonus thing to talk about that we weren't expecting throughout the course of the offseason. But let's get into the meat of today's show and really what we're excited to get to, which is 40 through 31 on our Locked On NHL Top 50 players list as voted on by the local experts around the Locked On NHL network. And we start, let's give you a little recap before we get to 40 through 31. Number 50 on our list, Max Pacioretty. 49, Ryan O'Reilly. 48, Pierre-Luc Dubois. 47, Aaron Ekblad. 46, Chris Letang. 45, Philip Grubauer. 44, John Carlson. 43, Johnny Gaudreau. 42, Kirill Kaprizov. 41, Miro Heiskanen. And we'll get to 40 in just a second here. But before that, any quick thought on maybe a guy that you didn't think deserved to be in the 50 through 41 group? Maybe a guy that you thought should have been higher, should have been in the list at all? Who comes to mind?
Yeah, there's a couple of guys on my list that I did not have in my top 50. I think Pierre-Luc Dubois was one of them. Didn't have a great season last year after the trade. So he was not on my list. Considering the guys like Malkin and Kyle Connor and who else? Nick Ehlers, who were left off in the snubs. I had all of them ranked ahead of Dubois. I think Pacioretty, I don't believe I had in my top 50 either, but the rest of these I think make sense, and I believe made my top 50.
Gotcha. Dubois was the one guy for me. I don't even think I thought about him for top 50, and he ends up getting in. We'll start with number 40 on today's show, and it's one of your guys. We go to the Toronto Maple Leafs for number 40, John Tavares in his 13th NHL season, going into his 13th NHL season. 19 goals, 31 assists, 38 even strength points last season in 56 games. What did you make of Tavares getting in at number 40?
Honestly, this is probably very appropriately placed. I think a top 40 player is probably right about where I would put him, in this 40 to 31 range. So I think that we did a pretty good job over at Locked On NHL ranking John Tavares amongst his peers. I mean, look, he's had a pretty good season later on. Earlier in the season, he did struggle a little bit to get it going, but then towards the end of the year, him and Bill Nye, William Nylander, who we see is also made this list this week at 33. They both really took off in the later stages of last season, and he's the captain of the Maple Leafs. That's not a easy thing to do. This is a tough market. But yeah, John Tavares, I think he's very appropriately slotted here at 40.
Yeah, I agree. I think I had him in my top 50. I think just a little bit lower than this, but was in my top 50. Good. His two-way game gets underrated, I think, at times as well. He has all the intangibles that you want for his position. And I think at a point in their careers where sometimes you see a little bit of a dip in production, I think Tavares is holding up pretty strong. And I'm not seeing many signs of him slowing down. You're watching him game in and game out. I don't see a wall coming from him, at least next year for sure. So I like the player a lot. He's been great for years, and I think he's definitely deserving of the spot. 39 on our list is one of my favorite players to watch. I think part of that is because I don't see the Sabres and these Eastern Conference teams play him all that much. And maybe if my team played him more, I would hate his guts. But I don't get to see that a lot. Matthew Kachuk gets in at number 39, left winger for the Calgary Flames. 16 goals, 27 assists in 56 games played last season. your first thoughts on Kachuk getting in, because he was in my top 50. I think actually I had him right around this same spot. I love the player, and I think this is a deserving result for him.
Yeah, this is about where I had him ranked as well. And man, Kachuk, such a dink. Like this guy is like I mean, like I follow the Canucks a lot too. Like also a Canucks fan, as guess my West Coast team, and so I've had a lot of viewings of Matthew Kachuk, and this guy is just such a pest. And also, this past season there was some like bad blood between Kachuk and the Maple Leafs as well. So Kachuk is an interesting player. He's super talented though. Like he is. Like he's like a modern day power forward. Obviously, a big guy, likes to go to the net, stir it up, but he did have a bit of a down year considering what he's done the rest of his career. But I think 39 again makes a lot of sense here. Like to me, Kachuk, I'll be curious to see if he ends up hanging around in Calgary though. It seems like things might end up, changing there a little bit, and he could be one of those guys who they could fetch a lot for if they try and do a little bit of a retool.
Yeah. He's a guy also that I mentioned, like if your favorite team is playing against him, you hate him. If he's on your favorite team, he's the fan favorite.
You love him. Love him.
Sure. And there's very few of those guys left in the league. So I'll do credit to him. Love the player that he's become. The offensive production's there as well. 38 on our list is another goaltender. Marc-Andre Fleury of the Chicago Blackhawks, pictured on our YouTube stream in a Vegas Golden Knights jersey. Go ahead.
This seems a little low to me. Like, this seems a little low. Like, this guy just wanted the Vezina. Like, look at those numbers. Like, a 198 goals against, a 928 save percentage, and just won the Vezina. And you got him ranked at 38? Like, I think I had him in my top 25, I want to say. Just a little surprised that he didn't end up getting a little more love. I don't know if it's because of the age, because of his career inconsistencies, but last year he was the best goalie, if not second best goalie. I guess maybe Vasilevsky, you can give him that mantle, but at least the second best goalie in the NHL. It's crazy to me that he was that low.
Yeah. I did not have him in my top 50, but I've explained this about goaltending
Really?
that I only had 2 goalies in my top 50. And to me, that was more, maybe I took the list too much to heart in terms of value and not just, hey, who are the best players? And I think really, if I revisited it and I re-ranked my list, I think Fleury would probably crack it. Maybe he definitely would not be in the top 25 like you had him, but he probably would have made my list because I think I did look too much at value and not, okay, who are just the best players? Because it's undisputed that last season he was one of, if not the best goalie in the league. The voters, he was definitely deserving of the Vezina Trophy. And right now, I think going into the season, he's one of the best goalies in the league. Now, there's a chance that he has a down year because that's kind of been Marc-Andre Fleury, really, since he turned 30 years old. It's been very up and down. But he's on the upswing right now until he heads back down that cliff, which will happen at some point, but it hasn't happened at the last time we saw him. I think he is deserving of where he went. So
playing in Chicago now that he's in Chicago, and that's not a very strong group down there. I mean, they've got a couple of stars, right? Like they have Patrick Kane, and we'll see what ends up happening with Taves. They traded for Seth Jones, but that's a pretty bleak group down there right now. And I'm not so sure that we'll see Vezina caliber Marc-Andre Fleury with that defense and that team play in front of him.
I think even if he's not in Vezina, in types of Vezina production this year, I think you could argue he's got an opportunity to earn more respect from a guy like me than he even did last season. I don't want to say it's easy to play goalie for the Vegas Golden Knights, but it does kind of seem like everyone they throw in there has like the career best, right? Robin Leonard has been at his best there. That first year that they were in existence when Fleury got hurt, remember, they were just rotating door. Like Oscar Dansk was playing for them and playing well. Malcolm Subban. So
they had was Dylan Ferguson, the 18-year-old draft pick. Like I think he was like a third or fourth round pick like that year. They had to emergency call him up from like the dub and get him into a couple games because they had no more goalies.
Right. So basically what I mean, where I'm heading here is because he's going to a weaker team and he's going to have a bigger challenge in front of him, even if his stats see a small regression, I think he could have a better year this coming year in Chicago just because of the opportunity. That's the way I see his season. If you know what I mean. Like a 923 save percentage this year with Chicago, so it would be more impressive than a 928.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. If his stats like stay the same, I suppose, and he has the same production, it would be more impressive here. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't think so either. He could be back in the Vezina candidacy if they make the playoffs, though. I think if they were to get into the playoffs and have a good year with that roster, I think he would get a lot of the credit. So Fleury comes in at number 38. Before we get to number 37 on our list, let's take a quick minute to tell you about rockauto.com. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. So why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse even happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save much time and money when you're using rockauto.com. It's a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Prices are reliably low for every customer, and they've got everything you need from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today. Find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, and write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. All right, let's go to number 37 on our list. We head over to the Boston Bruins, defenseman Charlie Mcavoy, the 37th best player in the NHL, according to our Locked On NHL Top 50 list. 30 points, 5 goals, 25 assists in 51 games played last season, really taking over, not that he hadn't before, but a true number one defenseman for the Boston Bruins. I've always loved the player. I was mad when the Sabres didn't draft him, and was that the 2017 NHL draft. He's developed really nicely, and I think he's a legitimate top pair defenseman in the league.
I'm with you. I agree. And as a Leaf fan and a Canuck fan, it pains me to say good things about Boston Bruins, but it's true. Like Charlie McAvoy's blossomed into a top pair defenseman. Not that we didn't think he would. Like there was always a lot of fanfare around his game as like just a great two-way guy. Like he can really play stout defensively. He can eat minutes, but also has a strong transition game. And I think that McAvoy is going to be one of the best defensemen for the next decade. So it makes a whole lot of sense here that he made our top 50 list.
So McAvoy at number 37. I don't think we really have any problem with that. I think I had him right around the same. We head over to 36 and another goalie, Carey Price, above Marc-Andre Fleury. Now, a lot of that probably had to do with his postseason run, obviously, because the regular season's not that great. 901 save percentage, and it's a big drop from where Fleury was at 928. Tougher team, not as great of a product in going on in front of you, but Price's postseason, I think, really vaulted him and his reputation back to that superstar level goalie. So maybe this is a bit of a reputation pick here. I don't have a huge problem with it. If I had 2 goalies in. If I put 3 or 4, I think these would have been the 2 guys. I would have had Fleury, though, above Price. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I had Fleury about Price because like we looked at it as this season, right? It wasn't necessarily completely a career oriented thing. But I did have Carey Price in my top 50. So that I'm surprised that you had the balls to leave both of those guys off your top 50 list.
Yeah. I did. It's the position, man. Like, I just think there's the drop off from the 3rd, 4th, 5th best guys to the 20th guys. I just don't see it being that different. So that's just kind of a me thing. But I think Price is one of the best goalies in the league. If I'm looking for a guy that I got 1 game to win it, he might even be the guy I go with. You know? Like in a big spot, like he'd be in the conversation. Maybe I'd end up going with somebody else, but I'm not going to crush anybody for putting Price this high.
It's probably between Vasilevsky or Price, right? For that 1 game elimination type of deal. And I think Vasilevsky's quickly like becoming that guy, but Carey Price is still Carey Price. And I wonder how much of like his playoff success factored into the voting, because we did these polls after the playoffs, right? So I wonder how much of that success, if we would have done this midway through the season last year where Carey Price wasn't playing well at all, where would he have slotted in? Would he still have been 36 or would he have been a little bit lower? I'm curious.
Yeah, that's interesting. The other thing, by the way, like with me only putting 2 goalies in, a lot of it was looking at value. And it is curious that these 2 guys, Price and Fleury, teams had opportunities to take them for free this offseason. Like a lot of that was the contract, I know, but Seattle could have had Carey Price for free, and they said no. And there were other factors there with injuries, and Chicago ended up getting Marc-Andre Fleury basically for free. So again, that's a lot of that is contract laden, but that's part of my defense, I would say, to why I didn't have them in on my original rankings. All right, before we continue on with 35 through 30 of our top 50 list, DirecTV. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that's let you catch up on the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. As a cord cutter, I could tell you that you are hunting for different things all over the place. Sometimes you got to go through 3 different apps to find, especially sporting events. That means no more juggling remotes, no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion. Get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directv.com. That's directv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. Joe DiBiase, Mike Distefano here on the Locked On NHL podcast. 40 through 31 of our top 50 players list in the National Hockey League. We left off at number 36. So far, we've read off John Tavares at 40, Matthew Kachuk 39, Marc-Andre Fleury at 38, Charlie Mcavoy at 37, Carey Price at 36, and we go to Mike's Vancouver Canucks for number 35, Quinn Hughes. Gets in the list going into his 4th season in the NHL. 56 games played last year, only 3 goals, but 38 assists, 22 even strength points. So he did put up some good power play production as well. I did not watch a ton of the Canucks this past season. The player's electrifying. But Mike, am I right in assuming, like reading a lot about them this year, like there was more consistency maybe with him than people would have hoped?
Absolutely. I think like his name value probably got him a little bit higher on this list than his play should have. But there was some big inconsistencies here, especially on the defensive end. Not very good defensively, and missing his partner Chris Tanev was a big reason for it. Like he was a good safety blanket early in his career, and then this year kind of bounced around between Tyler Myers and some other guys. Travis Hamonic, he did okay with Hamonic once he finally got healthy and played. But certainly it was an up and down year for Quinn Hughes. He went through a real big dry spell too, production-wise. I don't know if you recall, but the first month or so of the season, he was leading all defensemen in scoring, and then just went on a huge dry spell. And you just saw that. He only finished the year with 3 goals, which is not, fantastic. Something you would expect a lot more out of Quinn Hughes. But still, he's an exceptional talent. He's an unbelievable skater. Great with the puck, great IQ. But defensively, if he can either work with a really good partner or learn the game a little bit more defensively, maybe be structured a little bit more, I think he can become one of the top defensemen in the league.
He's got the potential. Cal McCarr is my favorite player to watch in the league. I think he, next to Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon probably. Defenseman, I should have said there. He's just so dynamic as a skater, electrifying with the puck on his stick. And I feel like I see a lot of the same skills in Quinn Hughes that Cal McCarr possesses. But I just don't think the consistency is there yet. I don't think he's really, this is obvious. This almost goes without saying. He has not achieved that level of play that McCarr has reached yet. But I think it's in there. I think if he kind of comes along the next couple of years and gets a little more consistent in his own end, I think that he absolutely could be a guy that's in the Norris conversation almost every year. And he's that new wave defenseman for me. Not just, cross-checking guys in front of the net, carry the puck, skate with the puck, always be tape-to-tape with your passes, create rushes, offensive zone entries. Hughes, to me, has a lot of those capabilities. And those are the type of defensemen I love to watch. He's electrifying. So I had him lower than this. I had him, I believe, at 45. Did he crack your top 50?
He definitely cracked my top 50, yeah. Yeah, he did. I think he was probably around there, early 40s. I think I had him in.
Okay.
But I think like another big thing just with Quinn Hughes is the difference between him and Makar is just like size, right? Like he's a little bit shorter, he weighs a little bit less. And when you're, fighting for pucks in the corners and you're playing top minutes against top guys, it becomes, those are difficult puck battles to win. And he doesn't win them as often as he needs to be one of those truly elite dominating defensemen.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
I would say yet. He's still good.
Yes. Super young. All right. Number 34 on the list, Roman Yossi of the Nashville Predators makes the list with 8 goals, 25 assists last year in 48 games played, 18 even strength points, a lot of points on the power play. The captain of the Nashville Predators. I think there was the biggest disparity between my list and the actual list on this player. Yossi was in my top 10. I'll be frank. Yossi was in my top 10. I think he is one of, if not the best defenseman in the National Hockey League. I think one chart I've really fallen in love with on him is his zone entry play. And it is literally Connor McDavid at the top of the list for just consistency and the volume in which the efficiency that these guys are carrying the puck into the offensive zone and getting set up. It is McDavid and it's Yossi. And then huge drop off after that. Like, not a guy you would think of for that. But doing it from the blue line, he's just so savvy with the puck. He's so consistent. He's so good all around. And to me, I love the player. He's the exact type of defenseman I would want leading my blue line. He eats a ton of minutes. And maybe I'm falling too much in love with the underlying analytical numbers, but I think the player is unbelievable. And I think he should have been a lot higher than this, personally.
Higher than this, probably. Top 10's a little rich. That's a little rich for me. I think I had him slotted between 25 and 30. So it's not even that much lower. But yeah, Roman Yossi's an ox. Like, this guy is just steady Eddie. You talk about consistency. Like, Yossi's been consistent for a decade. Like, this guy, he's what, 10 years in the NHL. And he's just been like the best. He's pushed aside so many great defensemen too. And like, it's just a factory out there when it comes to Nashville defensemen. Like, the last 10 years, the amount of guys who they've groomed and then traded away and used as like bait to go out and get other players is incredible. But Yossi's the guy who they decided to keep all along, and the guy they decided to give the captaincy to when they moved on from Shea Weber. And I think that says something to what they think of Roman Yossi and what we should all think about Roman Yossi, because he is absolutely one of the best defensemen in the league.
Yes. All right. After Yossi comes William Nylander at number 33. And you were I think this was the only guy that you mentioned to me beforehand before we got going here. Like, William Nylander, 33? Take me through your thinking there, because I did not have him this high. I don't think I had him in my top 50. Or if I did, it was like he just snuck in. What did you make of Nylander not only making the list, but being this high on the list?
Well, so yeah, this is you say that Yossi was your one where you were like, you were the biggest surprise and it was the biggest discrepancy. Like, I'm the Locked On Leafs guy. I didn't even have William Nylander in my top 50. Mm-hmm. Like, I was shocked that we had enough people on the Locked On NHL network that voted for Nylander to be this high. Like, absolutely shocked. I wonder if, again, this is similar to Carey Price, where they really just are looking at how well he played in the playoffs. And he was the Leafs' best player in the playoffs by far. He was fantastic. If you take that 7-game series, yes, this is a worthwhile and a worthy ranking. If you look at the whole season, there's not a chance that this guy is a top 30 player in the NHL. Not a chance. Like, inconsistency is this guy's middle name. I mean, that's the biggest problem with William Nylander. When he's on, and he's good. But when he's not, man, it's like he's not playing well. And there was so many things written and said about this guy throughout the year. I'm just kind of dumbfounded that he somehow made it to and was ranked as the 33rd best player in the NHL. I find that quite generous, because there were probably 5 or 6 guys legitimately in our snubs list who I would have ranked ahead of William Nylander.
I would have ended up getting Malkin out of him. That's for sure.
Getting Malkin. I think Kyle Connor's a better player than Nylander. I think that who else was out there? Nick Ehlers is better than Nylander. Like, there's a lot of guys.
How much do you think he was helped by his being in Toronto? Like, I don't know.
I think
is
so.
his reputation maybe not as high as it should be because of all the stars around him, or are those stars around him inflating his production because of the quality of teammates, and maybe that is getting him the recognition that he maybe doesn't deserve? I don't know.
I don't think so. Just because realistically, when the weird thing about this team is like they're either all on or they're all not. Like it's
Right.
so bizarre. But for Nylander, when he wasn't driving play, like there just wasn't production. Like there just was not on that line. Like him and Tavares both were not playing well, like at certain points of the year. And it wasn't until later in the season, like I was saying with Tavares, until they really picked it up and he started scoring. And then he carried it into the playoffs where he was the least best forward. Like he was better than Matthews. He was better than Marner, two guys who haven't showed up on this top 50 list, but I guarantee you will. And I feel like because a lot of people probably outside of the Canadian teams didn't watch much William Nylander this season, just assumed based on his play in the playoffs that is him. And he's a good player. But inconsistencies throughout the entire year, he fell off of my top 50 list.
All right. Before we get to the final two names on our list for today, 31 and 32, head over to betonline.ag. As always, BetOnline's your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. I know we had some college football action this past weekend, and I had a buddy who had the over on Illinois and Nebraska. Did you see how this went at the end?
No.
I mean, one of the worst bad beats ever. Like, bad beats are back. And maybe you want to be on the right side of that at BetOnline. It was 52.5 was the over for Nebraska and Illinois. And it was 32-20, maybe. It was at 52 with 2 minutes to go. Illinois had just scored a touchdown. The extra point to hit the over, upright miss.
Oh, no.
Instead of the over. One of the worst bad beats you've ever seen. So football's back. So be sure to do all of that over at betonline.ag. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest open now at BetOnline. And be sure to take advantage of their opening day super promo. Make a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener between the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only when signing up and using the promo code NFL100. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait and take advantage of all the great offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline, your online sportsbooks experts. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. And then also, Built Bar is back, and they've got a bunch of new delicious flavors: coconut, cherry barcia, raspberry, German chocolate, cookies and cream. They're great tasting. They're healthy as well. Check out the macros: 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Amazing flavors, all tasty and all healthy. Order today. Get the grasshopper cookie. I got a box of those at my house right now. I've been eating one a day. They're incredible. The grasshopper cookie flavors, or raspberry, or whatever you like. Built Bar is the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team. Go to BuiltBar.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. You'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKEDON for 15% off at Built.com. All right, 32. On our top 50 list, Joe DiBiase, Mike Distefano, it is Shay Theodore of the Vegas Golden Knights, defenseman entering his 7th season in the NHL. Feels like he hasn't been around that long, but he had those early days with Anaheim. Great defenseman, kind of slid into that number 2 role with Vegas after Alex Petrangelo comes over from St. Louis. I don't know that he needed to, though. I think he was doing fine as their number 1 defenseman. I think he's still doing great as their number 2. I've always loved the player. I didn't have him this high, but I didn't have him much lower. Even strength points last year, 27 out of 42. So he gives you some power play production, but he's not a power play specialist. Just a good all-around defenseman. I don't really have any problem with Shay Theodore being here at 32.
Me either. And you want a hot take?
Oh, of course. I always love a good hot take.
I'd flip 32 and 31.
Oh, wow. Well, maybe we should just give you 31, and then we'll make it a whole thing here. 31 is Alex Petrangelo. You had two Vegas Golden Knight defensemen back-to-back. So you would have had Theodore over Petrangelo. But you still would have had them back-to-back?
I did have Theodore over Petrangelo. I'm a big Shay Theodore fan. I think that he's so underrated. Like, he's one of the most underrated players in the NHL. He can do everything, like literally everything. Not that Petrangelo can't, he can as well. But I just, there's something about Shay Theodore. I think that he is so good. And he's going to be for a very long time. And it's like a 1A, 1B. They're almost tied. They're both just amazing. It's just unfair, the fact that Vegas has two defensemen of that high quality, realistically. But I put, when I did my rankings, I legitimately put Theodore and then Petrangelo right after. Like, that's how I had them so close, and I gave Theodore the nod.
All right. I don't have a problem with it. I had Petrangelo a little bit higher, but they were very close for me. And maybe some of that is reputation. I mean, when a guy's got a giant contract like that and he comes with the pedigree that he did of a Stanley Cup champion over from St. Louis, captain, right. Like, sometimes the reputation can kind of push you over the edge. And I'll be honest, I think maybe that happened even with me without thinking. If I revisited, they would have been very close. And there are two guys where, I mean, you're almost nitpicking, I feel
Absolutely.
like. Theodore, to me, is more mobile. And I typically like that in defensemen, like that ability to carry the puck. Not that Petrangelo can't do that. He's very good at it as well. But Theodore is a guy that I like with the puck on his stick, carrying it through the neutral zone. And it's not, all right, hit the red line and get it up to your forwards. Like, he's a good, well-versed, dynamic defenseman. And I like that. And usually those are the style of guys that I go for. All right. Two Golden Knights to cap it off at 32 and 31. Be sure to check out our Friday edition of the show with me and Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers. We will go through 21 through 30 on our list as we whittle down. Me and Mike will get in 20 through 11 on next Tuesday's episode as we approach the preseason and we continue on with our top 50 list. Thanks for tuning in to Locked On NHL. Be sure, if you're listening to the podcast, check out our YouTube channel, Locked On NHL, where you can watch us and check us out on social media. I'm at Sneaky Joe Sports. Mike's at Mickey_Canuck. This has been the Locked On NHL podcast with Joe DiBiase and Mike Distefano, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.